The Cartoonerific podcast is sponsored by the wonderful World of Animation Gallery, home of rare and wonderful fine animation art. Visit their website at wwagallery.com. And for our Cartoonerific listeners, you will receive a special 10% discount off any purchase if you purchase by March 25th, 2024. Just go to wwagallery.com and enter code CARTOON10 for your 10% discount. Once again, this discount is only valid until midnight, March 25th, 2024. Once again, visit wwagallery.com.
You're listening to the Cartoonerific podcast, classic animated cartoons, with your host, Brian Mitchell.
Welcome to Cartoon Fun, it's Cartoonerific, yeah! It's Cartoonerific, Cartoonerific, it's Cartoonerific, with your host Brian Mitchell.
Well, welcome to the Cartoonerific podcast, classic animated cartoons. I am Brian Mitchell, and I am your host. In the animation world, you have all these varied talents. You have directors, you have sequence directors, you got storyboard artists, you got writers, you have animators. And everybody has their specialty. I mean, there are people that can do just about anything. They can work on the dramatic scenes. They can work on action scenes. They can work on pathos scenes where you get the emotion into the character. They're emoting and they're making the character come alive and touching you somehow. So that's a fantastic talent. But then you have animators that are just really good at funny. And I mean, you have animators that can do whimsy, which is lighthearted action. But then you have other animators and directors and writers that just write, direct, or animate funny. Now, going back in history, the one that comes to mind that was one of the funniest animation directors was Tex Avery. And Tex Avery not only wrote the stuff, but he could storyboard it and he could pretty much design it and then hand it to the animator and tell the animator how he wanted it, because he had that whole vision in his head of how he wanted that cartoon to play to be funny. And he made some brilliant cartoons. He made some excellent cartoons. There were other directors that kind of followed after what Tex set in motion, and people like Bob Clampett, who did wonderfully funny cartoons at Warner Brothers. Chuck Jones, who eventually, he started kind of aping Disney and doing more dramatic action, more cutesy. And then when he saw where the other Warner Brothers directors were going, he kind of followed in suit, and he found his own way. And he made films that were clever, and they were laugh out loud funny. But he did it in his own way. He did it in a different way than what Tex Avery would do, or Bob Clampett. So Ward Kimball at Disney did funny cartoons. Hanna-Barbera did some very, very funny Tom and Jerry's. But anyway, Jay Ward and Bill Scott doing Rocky and Bullwinkles. And then after that, doing George in the Jungle and all those Captain Crunch commercials, which are certainly funny. They just loved doing stuff that had funny drawings and funny actions and funny dialogue and comic acting. I really loved it. So I guess my point is everybody has their specialty, but it takes a special person to think funny and write funny and direct funny and draw funny. It's a special talent. Anyway, on today's show, we have one of those people. And he is funny. He is a funny guy. He's been in the business for a long time now. He's worked on a lot of different shows. He's created, produced, directed some of your favorites like Eek the Cat and Toonsylvania, Mad Jack, Schnookums And Meat, Tom and Jerry movies. He's not only a writer, but he's a director, animator, voice actor. His name is Bill Kopp, and he's up next. Should be fun. Don't go away.
Cartoonerific is the place to be to celebrate hand-drawn animated cartoons. The Cartoonerific podcast features interviews with the magic makers behind your favorite animated cartoons, with episodes uploaded every Friday. Or visit the Cartoonerific blog featuring articles about classic cartoon animation. At the Cartoonerific Gallery, view original animation art and memorabilia from your favorite animated films and TV shows. The company store features exclusive swag from the Cartoonerific universe. And coming soon, brand new world premiere cartoons on the Cartoonerific channel. It's all here. Join the fun at www.cartoonerific.com. That's cartoon, ERIFIC.com. It's Cartoonerific, saving the universe one funny cartoon at a time. And now it's time for our special Cartoonerific guest.
Well, this gentleman has worked on a ton of shows. He's created, he's produced, he's directed, he's even a voice actor. Does a lot of different things, but he was involved with Toonsylvania, Mad Jack, Schnookums And Meat funny cartoon show with Piff Possum and Tex Tinstar. He's written and directed the Tom and Jerry movies. He is a all-around talent, and we're glad to have him here today. Please welcome writer, director, voice actor, and a master of funny cartoons. Here is Mr. Bill Kopp. Thanks, Bill, for coming on the show.
Well, it's great. It's great, Brian. Thanks for asking me.
So, Bill, tell me a little bit about your childhood. How'd you get into the wild and wacky world of animation?
I'd have to blame it on, well, probably Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh, there you go.
That was the first early cartoons I saw, and Warner Brothers, the old Looney Tunes. But I was more of a horror movie fan.
Oh.
And I drew mainly. I started making films when I was about 10. My dad gave me a little regular 8 camera.
Regular 8.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
like what do they call them? Like the Kodak. It had the flip up viewfinder.
Yeah, the 8 millimeters, the old 8 millimeter. Was it at the cassette, or was it like the reel that you had?
No, it was like
Right.
a reel to reel. You had to
Yikes.
load it, wind it up. You had to wind it up.
Did
wow,
you have to?
I'm sounding really old.
You had to thread that in the dark, right? Didn't you have to go into a dark room and thread it up?
Or the bag. You had the black bag thing. You could do that.
Yikes! Wow.
But then the regular Super 8 came out, and that was in a cassette. It was much easier.
Much easier. Snap and it
The
was
horror
in.
movies, like the classics, like Creature from the Black Lagoon and all the Corman stuff. I was really into that. And
Did you watch any of the Universal monster movies?
well, that's
growing
what
up?
I mean. Yeah, the classics is
The mo-
Creature, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, greatest horror movie yet. And
Right.
as far as Gothic goes. And then I started really drawing and painting. And that's what I wanted to do by the time I was getting out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
So I went to Cal Arts as a painter, and then I met all these animators who were having way much more fun
Right.
than the painters. So I switched my major and got into animation.
I know there's a few people
Also,
have done
Bruno
that.
Mazzeno was a big influence on me in later years.
Oh, okay. Did you see Allegro Non Troppo? Is that?
Yeah, but I was into his shorts.
Right.
Mostly like opera, and he made a whole bunch of them that were really like social commentary, very sarcastic, very funny.
Right.
But of course, Allegro was like awesome.
Yeah. I remember seeing that.
And then Pink Floyd, The Wall, Gerald Scarf stuff.
Right.
That was a big. That was when I really, that film came out. I think in '80. So I had seen it, and then I changed my major in '81. And I was just eating that up. I just thought that was so scary and cool.
Right.
The films I did at Cal Arts did pretty well as far as awards go, and got a little attention. And then Savage Steve Holland started making Better Off Dead. So I was actually finishing my last film at Cal Arts, Observational Hazard, when I started working on Better Off Dead.
How'd you get that gig?
Better Off Dead?
Yeah. Did you know Savage Steve or?
We were like best friends at Cal Arts.
Oh, wow.
He graduated a year ahead of me.
Okay.
And then he went off and got started. And
is he still known as Savage? Because I believe I saw his name on the Big Bang Theory. Did he work on that?
So we haven't spoken in a while. I haven't seen him in a long time.
Oh, I thought I saw his credit on there, but minus the Savage.
Yeah, I think he still has the Savage. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, so then we started doing that, and then he finished that and sold One Crazy Summer, and then we went right to work on that.
So now that was shot, you said it was shot in Nantucket.
Yeah.
And that's about a cartoonist. It's about a young cartoonist, and it's John Cusack.
Yeah, and I guess the first movie, Better Off Dead, he was also a cartoonist, although that wasn't a big featured part of the story, but he did have he was a cartoonist, yeah.
Wow. Well, maybe that's why I liked it. Plus, it was funny. There were funny things, and the animation was really
weird
cool.
and fun. It was great. They're both like cult hit favorites. People love it. The animation in One Crazy Summer, we went crazy on that. So that was all one frame, single frame animation, and all of it. That's why it looks so smooth.
Wow. What was there a decent budget for it? I would imagine.
Yeah, we had we had a crew of like 4. I think there were 3 main animators. We're the same guys that went to do The Simpsons right after that.
Right.
Wes and David and I. And then we had Jeff Myers and Tim Bjorklund helping out. So we had like a crew of like 6 animators, and then we had background painters and people to help on the camera. So everybody got paid well.
Well, that's good.
It was a good gig.
Right. So were those movies back to back that you're working on the animation, or there was?
Yeah.
I'm sure. Really?
Oh yeah. In fact, I don't even think there was a real break at all. I mean, Better Off Dead came out, and it was like right on the heels of that, we got to work on the pre-production for One Crazy Summer.
Wow. I mean, it's amazing to me because normally in the industry, like now, or even like at that time, there were breaks between projects. And especially a feature film like that. And a lot of times people would just be let go and they'd just say, yeah, we'll call you when we're back up and running again. But yeah, it sounds.
Yeah, these were, there may have been like honestly, as I remember, there was like maybe a month or 2 where we had a little break, and then we just started working on the ideas. It was pre-production, but pretty much the same crew, it was me and Wes on Better Off Dead.
No,
mainly.
it's Wes,
mostly me.
Wes who?
Wes Archer.
Oh, Wes Archer. And then the other one was Silverman?
Silverman I met him when a film of mine won an award at the Focus Festival, and his had won a previous year, I think.
Wow.
And we just hit it off. We became really good friends, and so I sucked him into One Crazy Summer with the rest of us. And that was super fun.
Right. So where'd that lead to? When you were done with that, where'd you go from there?
Well, for the first time in our 2-year long career, we found ourselves out of work. We were like, what do you do? Because we were not like polished studio guys. I don't think any of us had an agent or anything at that time.
Right.
And Wes called me up and said that he's been talking to this guy, Gabor Chupo, and they want to do these short cartoons. Actually, now that I think about it, I did pick up a short gig when Fox first started. I was making little tiny 30, 40-second bumpers for their thing they called The Late Show.
Right.
And they were like late show tunes. They were kind of like Han Wilson come to life sort of things. They're all a little morbid. So I had done a bunch of those. I don't even know where those are. There's a few on my reel, but I did like 30 of them.
Right.
And then Wes called me up and he's like, we got to go meet this Gabor guy. And Gabor said that he was going to be working with Matt Groening, and we loved Matt from Life in Hell. And
that was from LA Weekly, right?
It was in the Reader, I think. That's how far back this goes.
Oh, okay.
It did. I think it wound up in the LA Weekly,
Right
around there. But
okay.
and then we just started working on this little idea called The Simpsons.
Mm-hmm.
It's too bad it never went anywhere.
Right.
That's a joke.
I know it's a joke. No, I was waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Waiting for the other joke.
Yeah.
No, that's the one joke. That's it right there.
That's it. That's it for the interview.
It was just, it was another, because both Better Off Dead and One Crazy Summer were just, nonstop work like every day.
Yeah.
And it was the same with that, but we didn't care. We were like, I was like, how old was I then? Like maybe 23, 24 maybe?
Right. Now, were you from California or where are you from?
No, I'm from Seattle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you went from Seattle down to Cal Arts. You went to Cal Arts and then you came out and you were working on this stuff.
Right to work, yeah.
And then a little bit of a lull. Then you're working on a little bit of Simpsons stuff that didn't go anywhere. And,
that show. It's too bad it didn't catch on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
well,
then
maybe they'll revive it sometime.
And then I went to Disney, kind of right in the middle, right when that thing was starting to take off into. Well, I guess I'd started with I think we were doing the second season of the shorts.
Mm-hmm.
And it was somewhere in there where I got an opportunity to go work on the Roger Rabbit shorts at Disney.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Did you have to go to Florida for that, or you did it for?
No, I went to Florida later on.
Right.
During that stint, but later on.
Later on, they forced you down there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was weird.
Yeah.
But it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about storytelling at Disney. Plus, I was there with a lot of my Cal Arts friends that I knew really well.
Right.
Like Gary Trousdale, Kirk Wise,
right.
Chris Sanders, the list goes on.
Yes.
And but that was like where we didn't write anything in a script form. It was all done with drawings, but it was just that taught me a little bit more about timing and basic storytelling.
Right.
Gag construction.
Sure.
And great people there. And that, but I think if I had not done that, I don't think I would have turned into a writer and learning how to tell stories and write.
Right.
Obviously helped selling like Eek the Cat and Mad Jack the Pirate and Schnookums And Meat and
right.
the subsequent shows that I got to do.
Wasn't Pat Ventura was working on them too, wasn't he? On some of the Roger Rabbit.
Well, Pat and I were also really good friends from Cal Arts.
Yeah.
And he was really funny, man. He's still around. I don't know what he's working on, if anything, anymore, but he was great.
I know. He was going pretty strong for a while. He was doing like his own shorts over at...
Yeah, and he has a very distinct style.
Yeah.
Which, we kind of melded into the Tales from the Crypt thing. I always thought that I was... that my draftsmanship was a little bizarre.
Well, that's
which
good.
is okay for stuff like that.
No, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, well, it forces you to be unique. But Pat he was so slick and his stuff was so clear.
Right.
And we were really good friends.
Sure.
So when the Tales from the Crypt thing rolled around, I was like, well, this is perfect for Pat, to join forces with Pat on that.
Well, that came back. That came in the 90s, right?
I took a break. Well, I worked on Tasmania. I left Disney and then I went to work at. I did some really bad music videos for a year or two, or a year or something.
Anything notable that?
No. Aside from the fact that they all had a little bit of animation in them.
Oh, okay.
And but that was a crazy world, and then I got into. I got picked up with Warner Brothers to go work on Tasmania, and they wanted me to direct, but I wanted to write,
right?
Because I was getting all warmed up there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that happened. And then,
how did Schnookums And Meat come about? And Tin Star and all that wonderful stuff.
I'm trying to get the timeline right. So
it's hard.
So whenever Tasmania happened, so that happened.
Right.
And then I went to, so that had to be like 1990 or something.
Yeah. Somewhere around there.
91. Then I went to, I got hooked up back with Savage Steve, and we sold Eek the Cat.
Now, you were the voice of Eek the Cat.
That's right. I was the voice of the Pussycat. Yeah. Because no real actors would do it.
Really?
We tried to get like Gene Wilder and all kinds of people.
Oh, wow.
Nobody knew who we were, and they were just like, it's like it got down to we need somebody. So I used to always do that voice when we would pitch stories.
Right.
Yeah, because well, this is gonna sound kind of weird, but in our family where I grew up, we had a lot of animals, and all of them had different voices, so they could talk to you. And I had this one cat called Chauncey, and this was his voice. So, and he used that voice.
Right.
So it just stuck, and everybody got so used to hearing it in these meetings that just they're just like you're just do it. I was happy to. It was fun.
Yeah, sure. Well,
so
we had on a couple of guests, Jerry Reese was on. We had Kyle Carosa was on here, and
Kyle's great.
Yeah, and we were just talking about voices, and it's just like these animators just go off. It's like their own voice talent train. They're all they could all probably step in and do the voice. And sometimes they get to do them, sometimes they do.
Because an animator is really an actor, and then you've got, a sort of built-in sense of timing, obviously animation timing.
Right.
So that lends itself to, doing a voice and acting. Plus, we all watch so many great cartoons. You kind of get used to, that's the rhythm,
Exactly.
And so, yeah, but then it was about, well, Eek was on the air for like 5 years, but I kind of left the show after the second season.
Oh.
And this is how much things have changed. I got a call from Disney from a couple of guys over there, Kreisel and Gary Kreisel.
Gary Kreisel, all right.
And God, wow, I'm really old. So no names.
Well, we're about
anyway,
we're the same age, roughly. I think we're only separated by 4 months, so we're getting to be old geezers. Yeah,
you don't have as much brain damage as I do.
Oh, I don't know about that.
But so Disney called me up and took me out to lunch, and they were like, "Wow, we really like obviously the Simpsons they liked, but they really liked Eek." Right. And they were like, are you available to come over and do a show? And I was like, well, with Disney, what are you talking about? What do you mean come over and do a show? They're like, come over and do whatever you want. Right. I'm like, really? Like whatever I want. They're like, whatever you want, just be funny. I'm not kidding. This is how it went. Yeah. So I didn't pitch them anything. And I was like, if you're going to really let me do that, then I will absolutely come. Wow. And, that's a neat one. I pissed up a few people. Well, even when we sold Eek, I made people at Warner Brothers mad because I had to leave Tasmania for that. Right. But
well, somebody's always going to get angry. I mean, there are producers out there that are still angry at me for leaving, and I've tried to get them on the show, and they don't want to come on. Oh. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say who they are, but they're all pissed off at me. Because I left.
Well, I always thought it was funny when people would get mad. Like, I honestly thought when I went into Warner Brothers that I had sold a show, that they would be really happy for me. Yeah. And they were not at all happy for me. But I did it anyway. Yeah. And then, so that was really the offer from Disney. They were just like, come in and do whatever you want. And, we started with the cat and dog thing just because it's such an obvious target. Right. But Piff and Tex were sort of already in my head.
Yes, they're great. They're great, by the way. Very funny cartoons.
Yeah. I think they're funnier than Schnookums and Meat. I mean, Schnookums and Meat had some great cartoons in them, but the other ones were more personal and more suited to my personal style of storytelling and whatever, making fun of things. Yeah. So we did a couple of shorts. I guess they went on the Marsupilami show. And then they were like, okay, well, let's go ahead with the half hour. And I'm like, well, the only time we ever had, not even really a fight, but where I had to press for something was to make it a 3-part show because I loved Rocky and Bullwinkle and I love that broken up structure.
Sure.
So they were hesitant, but I threw some drawings at them and I was like, oh, this is going to make fun of superheroes. And actually, before Tex, I had pitched this thing called Guy and the Space Vigilantes. And then I got a call from John Crispolucci, who said, look, I'm doing a space thing.
Right.
Because we worked with a lot of the same people, Mike Fontenelli. And
Oh, sure. Sure.
And he was like, would you please change it into some, because he knew what I was doing. He knew it was like a serial.
Right.
And there's only, what do you have with the serials? You got space, westerns, and then gangsters. That's pretty much spies, right?
Right.
So I was like, no, I can throw this into a western. It was like nothing really changed. It would have been the same, basic cast and just put him in a western. So I was like, but I thought that was funny because he was really like not upset about it, but he was like, I'm trying to sell a space thing. Yeah, I can't have another space thing out there. It's,
Right. Right.
So
Well, that's kind of a diplomatic way of going about it.
Well, and honestly, I never thought it didn't even bother me. I was like, wow, you're making a Western, it's basically the same. I'm making fun of the exact same story structure and
right. The setting is just different.
Yeah, I just changed the background.
Yeah.
Well. So, but God, those were fun. And I wrote all those, I got used to writing like that from, we had a bunch of writers on Tasmania and then Savage and I wrote everything on Eek,
right.
Just the two of us.
Wow.
And so on Schnookums And Meat, it was like, they were asking like, well, who are your other writers? And I was really green about back then too. I was like, well, I don't have any. What do you mean other writers? I was like, what are you talking about? This is the work, right? This is my job.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to write all these? I'm like, well, yeah. Because we were just so warmed up,
Right, right.
And it still kind of worked out that way for me with the other stuff. It was always every series I did, I was the main
writer. Guy. Yeah.
We had help on Toonsylvania, and I think a couple of Mad Jacks but I was always writing the outlines. The story concepts were all mine.
Right. Did you bring Did you bring anybody in to kind of help with that? Because are we going to go chronologically here, or how do you want to? Yeah, we should. But
okay,
yeah, good. I'm sorry.
So no, there was no one else on Schnookums And Meat, and then they had all these executive changes at Disney, and Schnookums And Meat was not ever really a Disney show anyway.
No.
Even though it was funny,
they were more Warner Brothers than anything, but really crazy Warner Brothers,
Yeah.
A
lot of very free,
Yeah.
So, like Gary Kreisel had left, and so I was Jeff and I were sort of sitting there wondering what to do. I still had like a bunch of time on my contract, so they were like, "Well, just develop some more ideas," And I pitched a bunch of crazy things and nothing ever went. And then I got a call again from Gary, and he was at DreamWorks now, and he was like, can you and Jeff come over and work on this show, Toonsylvania, like monsters? So I was like, yes, yes, I can do that. Because I was getting antsy. I was really used to making stuff like back to back to back, and you get warmed up like that. It's taking a break is scary.
Was Toonsylvania was right after Schnookums And Meat? So
yeah, there was some time that went by because I remember Jeff started working on another Disney show. I think he was working on, I don't want to say, was it DuckTales? Something like that. One of those.
Or Darkwing.
So we were still in the same building, but
right.
They asked me to just develop more random ideas that they could shoot down.
There you go.
So I don't think it was quite a year that went by, but there was enough time where Jeff was busy on this other show and I was getting really frustrated.
Right.
So then the rescue call came from DreamWorks and we jumped ship and wandered over there. We'd just go anywhere where anyone would give us a job.
Sure.
It's like we could do our own thing.
Well, they're giving you, that's it. They're giving you, they're just basically saying, make your show and here's money and have a great time.
Though, there was the caveat was like, they were telling us, they're like, look, we've been working on this show for like I don't know, something like 2 years.
Mhm.
And I'm like, really? Yeah. And so they said there's a mountain of stuff, and you got to come in, and you and Jeff got to trim it down and clean it up and figure out what this show is about.
Sure.
Also, the other thing was working with Spielberg again, because I worked with him, or I worked alongside him on the Roger Rabbit shorts.
Right.
And he was just great, and a really nice guy, and very, very smart,
Mhm.
and creative. So that was exciting to get to be back there seeing him again.
Right. Mhm.
And but yeah, there was a mountain of stuff, and guys were still working on things, and
Mhm.
it was kind of strange because we had to put the brakes on a lot of good ideas. But I mean, what do you do when you've got just a mountain, literally, of random ideas that weren't connected?
Right.
So our first task was to sit down and sort of clean that up and break. And again, we're breaking it up into all these different sequences.
Sure.
And then I brought in some writer help on that. Martin Olson, Steve Oakes came in. I think we had Doug Lawrence came in.
Right.
So, and that was kind of a relief, but I sort of hung on to the ones that I like the most,
Sure.
which is what you do. I mean, you write the ones that are most natural to you.
Yeah, the ones that appeal to you.
It was good to have the help, and it was a big show. It was like there was a lot going on there.
Right. Interesting. So,
Yeah.
How long did that go on for, Toonsylvania?
Well, I had already. Okay, so during that time, now it's all coming back to me. During that time, when I was getting ready to leave Disney, I had already made a deal with Margaret Lash because of our previous experience on Eek.
Mhm.
And she knew I wanted out of Disney. So she offered me a deal that was in place or in the works while the Toonsylvania call came.
Right.
I was pitching Mad Jack to her. And she's like, okay, I'll tell you, if you do this Toonsylvania thing for one season, then I will greenlight Mad Jack, and you can do that with Jeff, because Jeff was very important to me to have as a partner.
Well, he's absolutely creative, dynamo.
Oh yeah, he's super funny.
Yeah.
And you get used to that. I was really used to having another guy, like Savage was, and having sort of an ally partner who was funny and you could reciprocate back and forth.
Sure.
And Jeff and I were also roommates at Cal Arts, another Cal Arson. So that's how that happened. So Jeff and I only did the one season, and then once that was done and it was up and running, I guess it was running.
Right.
I think they did another season of it, but that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing people always laugh about with me. They're like, how did you do so many shows? I'm like, because most of them only last one season. Apart from Eek, that went on for a while, but even that I was sort of just doing the voice at the end.
I think the important thing to note here is that most shows go 1 year, so it's basically, even if a show has longevity, even though you don't know that when you're done at the end of the first year. So it's like now you're kind of thinking already, okay, I need another gig.
Well, back then they would only give you like the 13 episodes. I don't know why that was the magic number, but that was always what it was.
Yeah.
And with Tasmania, though, because of the deal with Fox Kids and the previous experience with Animaniacs, they bought like 60 episodes.
Right. Yeah, they did the strip.
So that's why they got so mad when I left.
Yeah.
But after that, like, I never got a deal like a well, that's not true. Twisted Whiskers was like a 2-season thing.
Right.
Most of them just went for one, but then we got on to Mad Jack, and I thought that Pith Possum and Tex were fun, but Mad Jack was absolutely the best time, just the most fun, It was because we were all warmed up, and it was a really edgy show for Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like that show had such a good soul,
Right. Who picked that up, Mad Jack?
That was Fox.
Right.
That was Margaret.
Wow. Okay.
So I had this deal with her.
Right.
So we did Toonsylvania, and then we jumped onto Mad Jack. And then Yeah, and then Chaim Saban bought it.
Deke? No, Saban. Didn't he used to be with Deke? Saban, or was that always a separate
I don't
thing?
remember. The first I ever heard of him was back on the Eek days when he had licensed all the music for the Power Rangers or something.
Right.
And I guess he made a lot of money on that. I don't know how. And yeah, so then he bought Fox Kids. And
Okay.
first thing he said was he's getting rid of all the funny shows.
Wow.
Because he just didn't like
It's
And
like what
actually,
Cartoon
Jeffy
Network
and I-
does with Scooby-Doo now. Scooby-Doo 24 hours.
I
Because
never understood.
Yeah.
I know, like I met Chaim and we had lunch on many occasions. I flew with him on his private jet to one of the cons in New Orleans, and
right,
he never liked my deal because I had a really good deal.
right. Wow.
And I was like, I kept telling him, like, we're still going. We're going back to the Philippines to get the second seasons up and running, and we had our tickets and everything, and the studio paid for it.
Right.
And we were in the Philippines when he canceled the show. So that was like the saddest flight back from Manila.
Yikes.
Now we really don't know what we're going to do.
Right. Hmm.
The only good news there was he had to pay me for the 5 years or whatever it was. So I had a little cushion.
Yeah, it's always good to have a little cushion.
Yeah. And then it was kind of weird. Oh, so that's when we went on to Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah, Tales from the Crypt. How it seems so odd.
No, that's not right.
Okay, it's not right.
No.
Well, backtrack. Go ahead.
Okay, no, it was Eek and Schnookums and Meat, then the rest of it,
Right.
and then Tales from the Crypt was stuck in there right after Eek
Right after Eek.
or something like that.
Right.
No, after Schnookums and Meat, that's what happened, and because it was '94,
Okay.
so it was after Schnookums and Meat. Then it was Tales from the Crypt. Wait, or yeah, something like that.
It's in there. So let's just talk about Tales from the Crypt because it's one episode.
God, I'm really freaked out. The time chronology is
Well,
very bizarre.
you're juggling shows. You're doing one show and you're juggling that up in the air, and then you had another show coming, another one, and it's like, yeah, you can't. I can't keep it straight. I can't keep it straight. All the stuff that because I was freelancing, I was working in studio, I was doing all this other stuff, and people have corrected me in the past. They said, no, you weren't there yet. You were somewhere else, and
Yeah.
so. But let's talk about Tales from the Crypt. Let's just talk about that because it's a really fun show.
Well, I started that idea of doing a horror thing as a special back when I was on Tasmania.
Mhm.
Back then, it was called Little Dead Riding Hood.
Right.
So I got to know somebody who knew Joel Silver.
Mhm.
And then I met Joel's secretary, and I used to call her like every day at lunch to be like, "Can I get in to pitch this thing?"
Right.
I mean, this is like a year of persistent. Every day I would make this phone call, and she used to laugh. She's like, "Oh, not today. I'll call tomorrow. Maybe we'll figure it out."
Right.
But I was really persistent, and then by the time
that word comes up a lot on this show. Persistence. Persistent. Yeah. Really
in this
important.
industry, you have to be persistent.
Yeah.
So finally I got a meeting with Joel. So this had to be like 93, somewhere in there.
Mhm.
And so I went in and pitched it to him, and it's a really funny story. I actually made a book of it a couple of years ago, The Little Dead Story.
Wow.
So I pitched it to Joel, and he was like, I don't know, man. How about, do you got everything with anything with those three pigs? You got that how about that? Wouldn't that be funnier? Do you have a script? And I just totally lied. And I said, yeah, I've got a script. I can bring it in next week. And I wrote it like in 4 days.
Wow.
And then I sent it in and they approved it.
Wow.
And then we just went from there. We started storyboarding. I was still using my office at Fox.
Wow. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that episode? I mean, just the idea. He was producing Tales from the Crypt. He was producing that show. Was it? Yeah. So so basically you sold him on the idea of an animated episode, which, I mean, that it's so off the beaten path for that show to do an animated episode.
Well, the idea got put forward too by Topper Taylor, who was running Nelvana.
Yes, I met him. Yeah.
So and Eek was done at Nelvana, so there was kind of and he knew about this idea, and I guess he had some. So Topper kind of helped kick the door open.
Oh,
even though I'd been persistently banging on it.
Right.
And so, but once it was approved, we just started storyboarding right away.
So tell our audience the characters' names, because this is the Three Pigs, but
it's
very unlike Disney.
It's the Three Little Pigs story template, and then we had Mr. Wolf, the bad old wolf.
Mm-hmm.
We had the Three Little Pigs in this version, known as Drinky, Smokey, and Dudley, the nice pig. The two brothers are layabout deadbeat drunks, and do you want me to tell the story?
No, you don't have to tell the story. Let's just say Drinky.
Yeah.
It's Drinky and Smokey end up dying. And
they get killed by the wolf
in a in a
really gory murder.
Very gory, funny way.
Right. And Dudley brings them back to life with the aid of, the old Frankenstein book or whatever he found that. And he succeeds in creating this zombie pig, and he wants to unleash it on the wolf for revenge.
Wow.
And it doesn't work out that way.
Mm-hmm.
And he ends up getting eaten by the crazy wolf. Nobody wins.
Nobody wins. There you go.
But it was
no
done
happy
with
ending.
Such gore. I think it's the bloodiest cartoon ever made.
I believe it is, but
maybe apart from some anime that I don't know about, but
it's gory, but it's done in a very humorous way.
Yeah, it's like the Black Knight kind of thing in Holy Grail. It's like that level of absurdity.
Yes. Very, very well. I remember seeing it and being disturbed and enjoying it all at the same time. Oh yeah, laughing.
But but the gore is done in such a cartoony way. It's drawn so funny and stupid.
Yeah,
you have to laugh. It's repellent, but you're laughing at the same time. So that's a good trick right there.
It is a good trick. So after that, what'd you move on to? How was the reaction to that when people saw this thing? Was there?
Oh, people loved it. They still love it. It's it was the final episode. It was the 13th show of the 13th season.
Wow.
Tales of the Crypt, that's what I've heard.
Wow.
And, but when people find out that I did that, they're like freak out, like at conventions. They're like, "Oh my God!" And now they say like, "I saw that when grown men will say, I saw that when I was 8. It freaked the shit out of me." And that always makes me feel it's like you saw it when you were 8. Oh my God,
Yeah, well, it was a cartoon, so parents let them watch it.
Yeah. But it just makes it's like, wow, you were 8 and I was like already 40. Oh, okay, or whatever I was.
So what happened?
So after that, then it turned into because Mad Jack came after that.
Okay.
So with Schnookums And Meat, Eek, and then in there somehow Tales of the Crypt, and then on to Mad Jack and whatever. Yeah.
It is hard to keep track of this stuff. I'll tell you. I got to sometimes look at the resume and say, "Oh yeah, I've forgotten things I've worked on." I saw a storyboard I did, and I was giggling at the storyboard because it was so stupid, and I was like, "Oh wait a minute, I did this."
Well, yeah, like you were saying, you did a couple of Schnookums And Meats.
Yeah,
good ones.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I put a lot of poodles. I used to torture poodles in my cartoons because my parents always had poodles, and they're always the worst kind of dog you could ever.
Very yappy. They're very yappy dogs.
Yeah, and
high strung.
Then they get old and gross, and they look like the Crypt Keeper,
Yeah,
their teeth are falling out. They're all It's like, come on, you're 15.
That's right.
Call it quits. So Poodle showed up in Mad Jack. Poodle showed up in Schnookums And Meat.
They show up everywhere. Well, because you have a thing for it.
Well, they're supposed to be so adorable and cute. And they're actually really awful personalities. They're just bad dogs.
Yeah, they can.
Sorry to all you poodle lovers out there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Experience talking.
I love the poodles, but hey, I had a shih poo.
I guess when they're cute puppies, they're fine at that stage. But once they get to be like 70, they're still not dead.
Not in dog years when they get to be 70 years old. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. They actually get brown. You notice that? They go from that light.
Or if they're like ours are always black, and then they'd get this weird gray, but it wasn't like, like handsome. It was like, just spots of gray, like it was decaying.
Yeah, exactly. It's like somebody put it in the fridge for a couple of years.
Yeah, like it's spoiling.
Mold is growing on the poodle. So what happened after Tales from the Crypt? Because that was a one-off.
Right?
Did you take that production? You said you went to New Zealand, right?
Yeah, we went to New Zealand to animate it, and the same place where they did Tex, and they worked on a lot of Disney stuff.
Right.
They were great animators.
Mm-hmm.
So when we got there with Tales from the Crypt, they had just finished working on something for Disney's, probably a DVD back then.
Sure.
The animation was still really good. It was feature quality animation.
Right.
And when they started animating I remember the first scenes I would get back from the guys, they'd be like, they bring me this stack of drawings for one shot. I'm like, you got like 80 more drawings here than you need for this. So I remember just pulling drawings out because they were so used to animating the shit out of everything.
Sure.
That when we showed up and we were like, no, this is basically limited animation.
Right.
So it took them a minute to, but that was it. You don't need this. You don't need that. You don't need this. Just boom. It's like he sees them and wham, you pop the pose and all that stuff. So It took them a minute to get used to thinking that way.
Show them some of the later Chuck Jones cartoons. I'm talking about like the late 50s, where you get a good pose.
Too, like of Ward Kimball stuff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where one element is animating really well, but the rest is just like a held cell.
Yeah.
Things like that, little tricks like that. It's difficult animation. Just because there's fewer drawings doesn't mean it's any easier to get the animation right.
Well, you got to figure it out. You got to figure it out, and then you got to imagine how that's going to work, and then you got to execute it.
And then that kind of limited animation is very specialized timing.
Right.
It's not just all on 2s. It's like that's on 4. This is held for 13, and not 12, 13.
Right.
And like that. So
there's an art to good limited animation.
Oh, no doubt about it, man. It's actually in a lot of ways it's trickier.
Yeah.
If you're gonna be fluid, you've got physics there that will say that you're right or wrong. With all that goes out the window when you're doing limited stuff because you're inventing that, really.
Yeah.
So it's a different kind of timing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've learned that. That just because it's flailing around the screen, it's moving. Hey, it's moving. Yeah. And it starts looking like a blob after a while because. Well,
exactly. There is such a thing as over animating something. You can a lot of stuff.
Yeah. It loses a snap. It loses the sharpness, the dynamic posing.
It loses its timing because everything's so
fluid
and even and flowy that it's like, okay, it gets boring.
Yeah. I mean, I don't move like that.
I don't either. Maybe if I was falling off a building, that might be pretty smooth.
It probably would be.
Except for that last frame.
Yeah. For me, if I did that, the whole ground would, it'd be like an earthquake. So
then there you go. That's Coyote style right there.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to think of. I think that began a period of more development. Then it was probably. I think I had a deal at Warner's where I was working and developing some stuff, and then none of that was going anywhere. And then the Tom and Jerry movies came along,
right?
Like 2004,
right?
I think it was somewhere in there. So there were a couple of years where not much was happening.
So you were doing the voice of Tom on some of those things, right?
Yeah, I was screaming and taking a SAG check. Tom didn't talk in mine. He just screamed,
Right.
Because I was going old school. I didn't like the Tom and Jerry's where they sang and spoke and all that. So
right.
we were going back to the traditional, way of slapstick.
Right. So were you working on those as well? Were you like?
Yeah, I wrote them.
Mm-hmm.
I think I wrote one, and then it took a little while, and they said okay. And then during the production of Blast Off to Mars,
mm-hmm.
They had me write another one while I was directing that one.
Right.
That was hard to do.
Yeah.
Because I had a rough story for the Fast and Furry one, very mm-hmm. rough.
Right.
But there was so much going on with that first movie. I mean, it was a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So working on another story, I remember that being a really difficult writing process.
Right.
Because there were so many interruptions. Usually that didn't bother me, but
right.
On this one,
were you visually writing or just typing?
Oh no, we were writing. Yeah.
Right. It's hard to do that for Tom and Jerry because you got to visualize it and then you got to kind of put that down and leave some room.
I kind of figured out a way of writing for cartoon visuals. I sort of developed a little mini language of how things work because I was writing all the time for storyboard artists, mm-hmm. not for people who are reading a narrative.
Right.
So my scripts were very, very easy for a storyboard guy to understand.
Oh, good.
So it was really written more in a sort of a shorthand
mm-hmm.
that a board artist could go, oh, okay, yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty.
But you had to write it that way because it had to get approved by the executives who were not cartoonists. So there was a way of like talking to the storyboard guy and then talking to an executive. But something had to be on paper for them to approve it. So it had to be written. Right. We could have done it easily without a script, I think.
Right.
I just done it on the boards, as we went along. There would have still been a little outline, but
sure.
75 minutes of animation you got to write something down. So
you do. And it's a lot of gags to put into I mean, obviously it has to have a narrative, but
not much of one.
No. It's
you're right.
It's a thin story holding the gags together, or maybe the gags are the glue holding it together. I don't know. Something like that.
Yeah, no, there is. There has to be a spine to it.
Right.
But it was those were a lot of fun because that was sort of, we put everybody put their boards up in the big room.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd all go through a kind of old school style, and that was really fun. That was refreshing. So
you sat in on those? You didn't do any storyboards on that though.
Well, I was all over that thing. I mean, I wrote it and I was directing it, so
right.
I didn't. The hardest part about that was they initially. How do we break it up? They wanted to have 3 guys and each guy does an act. And then they still wanted it done in 3 months. I'm like, there's no way that's going to work. For 75 minutes of animation, you're insane.
Yeah.
So I said, 3 guys on each act. And then everybody had I don't know, still wasn't very much time, maybe 2 months, 2.5 months, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 guys would break up, whatever, 30 pages.
Sure.
Or 25 pages. It made it a little easier, but there's a lot of planes flying around, at the same time. Because all the acts are being done at the same time.
Right.
So you're jumping around. It was a little crazy. We still got it done.
Yeah. Well, you're just approving. You're just getting one act in and then getting all these storyboards in and saying, no, we got to do this, we got to do that. And send them back and have them clean.
It was we had a pretty good structure to it. So I knew where to put the right people. Pat was on there.
Right.
So I knew that's a gag guy. So give him that kind of thing. I had Kyle Mankey, who's a great action guy. So I had him do the big climax on that one.
Sure.
So a lot of it too is casting your guys, your storyboard guys, as to what their skills are,
Yeah. The strengths.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Some guys are really good with the guys who are really good with acting, you know, aren't big on action. They're more expression guys on characters. You know?
Sure.
And
Yeah, it's like the way Disney casts his animators for his feature films.
Yeah, you give them the stuff what they gravitate to.
Yeah, like Ward Kimball got the very funny, wacky stuff, and then they would give Frank Thomas the heavy acting, you know, and then Milt Kahl would get the hard to draw stuff. You know?
Yeah, and then Bill or Titla would get like the big guys, you know.
Yeah, Stromboli or the Devil
and the Devil, yeah.
So
Stromboli, yeah.
What? So when you finished up on these Tom and Jerry, how many Tom and Jerry's did you do? The Tom and Jerry.
I did 2 back to back. Those were also back to back.
Right.
And then I had written a haunted house one that never got approved, never got made. It got approved, but it didn't get made.
Right. They're afraid they're going to scare the kiddies, or
No, I don't know what was going on there, because I know that they did I know subsequently there were other Tom and Jerry's that were made after that, but there was sort of a halt on production in that regard for a minute, and they're not going to keep everybody. God forbid they keep everybody employed.
Right.
During the lulls, but now I'm trying to think of what was after that.
Maybe they were trying to figure out, like, maybe the films weren't released yet, because they went right to DVD. They weren't released theatrically.
No, they were right to DVD.
Yeah.
They were always intended for that.
Right. Maybe they were waiting to see how they did, or I don't know. Sometimes they pull back, and they
also again there was a lot of management changes that happened during that too, and that always slows things down. You know, when executrons move on to greener pastures, hopefully greener.
Right.
I don't know, but now I'm thinking like then there was. So that had to end like around, I think it was somewhere around 2006. Margaret called me and Savage up,
right,
and started talking to American Greetings about their Twisted Whiskers show.
Oh, okay.
They had those greeting cards with the bug-eyed animals.
Yes,
they were really bizarre looking.
Wow.
And so Margaret just thought it would be great if me and Savage got together, and it was for a while, but he was so busy doing live action stuff, he wasn't able to devote the time. So we worked together on doing about, I think we did like a half a dozen shorts that were really funny,
right,
featuring these animals, and then they went ahead and made this deal, and for 2 seasons. And then Savage left, and I just directed all of them, and wrote most of them. So that was a hard show to do. We got a lot of interference. One of the things I begged the American Greetings, I was like, okay, if we do this, you got to let us do it, you know. And they were like, oh yeah, no, we're going to stay out of your way. And they're totally did not stay out of our way. Right. It's still out of I don't know how many cartoons we made, 50, something like that.
Sure.
There's about 25 really good ones.
Right.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah. No, that's great. So when you're done with that, that was it. You just did those cartoons, and then you moved on to the next thing.
Oh, but we were aching for more because we finally got it figured out.
Right.
And then that was 2008. So the big economic crash happened.
That's right.
I don't know why it stopped the cartoons, but it did.
Well, it stopped everything.
Even Margaret was like willing to use the hub, you know, to help pay, to supplement the production.
Right.
Because we were just starting to get really funny with it.
Sure.
And then, I don't know what kind of problems the hub had later, but that series just kind of disappeared, you know. I guess there's some fans out there I hear from now and then, but it's too bad because there were a couple of really good characters that were really funny.
Yeah.
Again, we had a blast making it, you know.
Well, that's good.
We had more fun than anybody else.
So you had the crash happen, and then what happened? Just everything kind of died for a little while, or?
Well, I think that it did. It really did. Gosh, after 2007, there were like, I did a lot of writing on my own. I was trying to work on a few ideas. Dumb Bunny too
Mm-hmm.
popped up. I wrote a bunch of stuff that I just really hadn't done anything with. Then I got around to like I'm talking about like 2 or 3 years went by, and
Yeah, it's a
then
long
I got a
stretch.
deal with Wild Brain. One of my old bosses from Warner Brothers had a deal there,
Mm-hmm.
and I pitched him this really crazy live action stop motion B movie sci-fi thing called Earth versus Everything.
Right.
And I had the Kyoto brothers animating on it, with their gang.
Right.
I feel like I'm just running through my really boring resume. I hope this is interesting.
No. It's very interesting. No, don't. No, it's very interesting because you worked on a lot of great stuff, and people are interested in hearing it. I'm interested in hearing it. So.
Earth versus Everything was great.
Yeah.
I'll probably put the short out one of these years, but it was really fun to make. So we did like a 20-minute short. They gave us we had enough money to make a really cool short film, and we had stop motion animation in it and all that.
Wow.
And then the Hub was interested in picking it up as a series.
Right.
And that was like, oh my God, live action with animation. This is going to be so cool.
Right.
And then the Hub evaporated.
Wow.
I was famous for like getting projects that would just start to take off and then like somebody would buy the company. That's what happened. Wild Brain got bought
Oh, okay.
by some Canadian company, but then Margaret was still interested in it, and I could still do something. It was in my contract that I could still work with it.
Right.
And then the Hub exploded.
Wow.
And then I think after that, I wrote a Woody Woodpecker feature for Universal. This is like 2014.
Right.
And then that didn't get made. It was a funny script too.
Wow.
Better than any of the other. I saw that pieces of that one Woody movie they made. Oh God, it was terrible. No offense. I know it's not your fault, animators.
It's never their fault. It's always
Yeah.
somebody else. It's always somebody else.
And then it just went into the dark time. I think around 2016, I got a deal with DreamWorks.
Right.
Christopheria had wound up in place of Jeffrey Katzenberg,
Mhm.
and he was an old buddy from Warner Brothers. I was like, oh my God, this is great.
Right.
So he gave me, they had an outline for a feature that they wanted to punch up. And so I made a deal with DreamWorks, and they were like, yeah, if this thing works, you could direct it and that'd be great. So I'm really excited. And the
Mhm.
story was great. It involved all kinds of different styles of animation. It was really cool.
Sure.
I loved it. And then DreamWorks got bought by Universal.
And there you go.
This would always happen to me. I'd have this great thing, and then I would just walk right into a landmine.
Yeah. That
Everything-
happens a lot.
Everything explodes. And then I got like a phone call from them. They're like, yeah, it was great stuff, man. No, we're not doing it. It was like, I was like, wait a minute, is there a story problem? Or it's like, no, it's nothing like that. It was
Right.
not,
Now
but
that
that was like, that one really got under my skin.
right.
Then I did my book, Little Dead Riding Hood,
Mm-hmm.
kind of make myself feel better.
Sure.
And now we're catching up to almost current times.
Present day.
So
Present day Bill
then
Kopp.
We got
Yes.
a call from Activision,
Mhm.
and they were with another little animation guy that we like, and they wanted to do Crash Bandicoot
Oh,
as a series,
okay.
but full on, big time, really good animation, everything we want.
Right.
So I brought Kyle Carosa in on that,
Oh, okay.
and Jeff DeGrandis too.
Yeah.
And we worked for like a year. We had test animation done that was beautiful.
Mhm.
The stories were really funny. It was going to be a really outrageous show. It had fake commercials in it and all this great stuff.
Sure.
And now the pandemic's hit, but we're still pitching. We're pitching through 2020.
How does that happen when you pitch a show during the pandemic when nobody's...
Well, the Bible was so thorough that we just had to cut down to visual. So it was a really fun pitch because there was so much visual entertainment. So you weren't just sitting there looking at a bunch of talking heads. There was images happening,
Sure.
on your screen.
Right.
So, and it was really a really funny take on that whole universe.
Right.
And, they wanted it to be more adult, which is great. And, but the adult, it wasn't adult for enough for like FX and Hulu and places like that.
Sure.
So, without having to really change anything, we sort of emphasized the more kid humor aspect of it.
Right.
And then we started getting some real good feedback. And then we sold it to Amazon.
Wow.
And we were ready to go. So this is like right around Christmas time of
2020.
So Christmas 2020.
Okay.
And then right after Christmas, I get an email or however they told me.
An email.
And they're like, yeah, Activision's pulling out. They don't want to do it anymore.
Wow.
Just like that. And I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
I had enough of this. Gosh darn it. No, those weren't the words I used.
Right.
And I said, I got to figure a way out to make these cartoons because I like making cartoons and I feel like an asshole. I'm going up meeting with all these people. And I had a quote, I think, in Cartoon Brew, which I put really well. It's like being a painter, but the canvas that you need to paint on costs $8 million.
Yeah.
It says, and people kept telling me all through the course of the craft, because I was still a traditional, all of Little Dead is done hand inked, painted,
Sure.
I didn't have a Cintiq or anything.
Right.
So I did get a nice little bonus when they canceled the crash thing. So I just bought a superhuman computer and a Cintiq, and I just went to school on how to do this stuff. I had to figure out, and I know a bunch of animators, so everybody's telling me to use this program, use that program. And,
right. Everybody has a favorite,
Yeah. And I was really concerned about being able to keep the drawing style, and I didn't know how to do that. Which program is best or what. So it took me about 9 months of pretty much since I started with my Cintiq in February of 21.
Right.
I selected Character Animator as the program of choice. Besides, with all that Adobe stuff it comes with is great.
Sure.
So I subscribed to that, and then I just started watching YouTube tutorials and figuring it out. It took me, I thought I was going to lose my mind for about 6 months. And then it was like one day it just kind of clicked. It's like, oh, now I see how, okay.
Yeah. That
took until about March of this year. And that's when I started the first Dumb Bunny cartoon.
Yeah. So basically you just got sick of development hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I was saying to Gene Hamm, he should make a movie called Development Hell.
No one would go. First of all, it'll never get made.
That's one thing. Or they'd make it and people would just leave in the middle of it. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Right when the good part was starting. Right? They get up and walk away.
Right.
But no, it was like there's got to be a way. I mean, I know there's a way to put the power back in the hands of a guy like me. Is all I want to do is make cartoons. That's it. You know?
That's all we want. That's all any cartoonist wants to do.
So now that this thing, and there's a million. Oh man, I'm still learning a lot. There's still a lot I don't know. But every time I sit down or there's an update, it's like, oh my God, they're making it even better. It's even cooler, and you can get away with. You can get as elaborate as you want with it.
Sure.
You can really make cool shit. But, the idea was like, okay, I'm just going to use it right now for Dumb Bunny just and really I was looking at Roger Ramjet's
a
lot.
Yeah.
And that tone of humor and Rocky and Bowling, I just sort of went back to this is doable.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one, and I was like, I know how to do every job there is in animation, from the writing to the finished thing. So I'm just going to sit down and do this. I was shocked. The first Dumb Bunny cartoon, they all took about 5 weeks from script to finished product.
Wow. So
the first one's a little rough, but the second, the third, the 2, 3, and 4,
they get better.
They're about the same caliber. Thankfully, the fourth one is the funniest, so it's getting better. And then so I'm ready to. I haven't showed them to anybody except a few close friends,
Right.
and I just can't believe it. Like this thing. I mean, what used to take literally months to do, I'm
Mhm.
doing in a 10-minute cartoon in 5 weeks. Are you kidding? And it's funny, and it's what I want to see. So I don't know, man. And even if I had a crew of like, let's say I don't need any more than 10 people
Mhm.
total.
Right.
That's probably including actors. Everybody could get paid top dollar on a
Right.
union scale,
Mhm.
and I could still do this thing for like a tenth of what it would cost to make an animated half hour at a regular studio.
Right.
And still everybody gets paid great.
Yeah. It's amazing, right?
It is amazing. So now we'll see what happens,
Yeah.
And I've got some people, we're talking to a couple people very too early to even say, what's up. So the premiere is going to be December 3rd at the LA Comic-Con.
Very cool.
And then we'll see what happens. But either way,
Mhm.
I'm still going to make them,
Yeah.
and maybe I can sell them as a whole package. If I'd like if somebody came in for the second, half, like to come in for like do 8 more half hours, so 16 more cartoons,
Right.
and then part of that having a deal for distribution, because that's what we really need. And everybody's like, well, if you pitch it 3 times in this town, you're done. And everybody seems to forget about the other 9/10 of the globe out there.
That's right. That's right.
So,
Well, hey, I think it's wonderful. I think that's the way it should go anyway, because the tools are there where you can actually produce a cartoon, and you could produce it any way you want to produce it. You make it bare
exactly
bones.
what
You
I'm
can,
doing.
yeah.
It's that kind of humor, and
Right.
they're kind of gross and stupid, but they're lovable somehow. And,
Well,
the cartoons are short enough to where they don't have a chance to get boring. It would be easy to expand these into a 20-minute
Sure.
episode, but it's kind of fun just banging them out like at 10 minutes.
Are they 10 minutes each, or how long are they each? 10 minutes.
About 10 minutes each.
Wow.
So I've already got 40 minutes of animation
Pretty cool.
done. And the only reason I don't have the 5th one done right now is because, Comic-Con and everything else. I was making trailers and promos and
Sure.
different poster art and stuff like that.
Wow. Very neat. Very neat, Bill. Well, I give you a lot of credit for doing that, because
I had to go to school on it.
well,
It was done
that's
out of pure frustration and aggravation. And, I'm going to make these things, and I'm sick and tired of having people say, no, you can't do that.
Yeah. And what do they know anyway?
Nothing.
How many shows have been on the air that just get canceled within like 3 weeks?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's been a bunch.
Yeah. And I mean, and they're
anybody that
yeah.
wants to make anything, like I just heard some news from Cartoon Network. They're like, we're not taking on anything new,
Mhm.
but if you got any ideas about, reusing old stuff, I mean, it's like, God, man, really?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to make anything new because because they don't know,
They don't know. They're scared.
Well,
They're scared.
now,
Everybody's
if
afraid of
someone
their
would listen to
job.
me, I
Yeah.
could take your $1 million half hour and do it for 50 grand.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Like,
Well, maybe that's the way. Maybe that's the way it should be approached. Like,
Well,
I will. I want to own half of it. I own half of it. We produce it for this amount, and that's
exactly. Do it like that.
Yeah.
The only thing I just want to hang on to the rights of the characters, because that was something I always had to give away.
Right.
So, but there's a way you can work stuff out. We do it together, whoever it is.
Sure. Well, I think the key to that is you try to self-distribute it wherever you're going to put it. You try to do it that way, and then hopefully it builds up a following where they see that 1 million people are looking at it, or 500,000 people are looking at it, and then you have some weight when you go in and negotiate.
Yeah, I really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, there are some friends and people that I love and trust that are interested, and but we'll see. The other thing is, like somebody said to me, they're like, well, if you pitch it and nobody takes it, then then you're stuck, with these cartoons. I'm like, what do you mean stuck with these cartoons? If I were just a painter, I would be painting anyway.
Right.
I'm an animator, so I'm not going to be stuck with anything.
No, you're doing it because you want to do it. And so,
And if it turns out that I have 10 half hours, 20 cartoons, that's a whole little package that somebody's bound to like,
right. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're good. They're funny, they're genuinely funny.
I can't wait to see them. And I think the audience here can't wait to see them either. When are they going to be able to see them? I know you're going to premiere them over Comic.
There's some trailers. I can send you some artwork and stuff if you want.
Sure.
Just see if you want to post it on your.
Oh,
page.
Absolutely.
And then there's a trailer that got circulated. There's a bunch of them, but some of them we're holding on to because we just don't know where we're going to wind up.
Right.
And as far as releasing them, we're not putting any full cartoons out because we're going to be talking to people hopefully early in the year, and then we don't want to say that, oh, this one's already out. We want it all to be unreleased. The trailers are a different story.
Sure.
But whole cartoons we're sitting on.
All right.
Until we know more,
Okay. Well, I'm sure the audience here is going to be excited to see them. So
I hope so. Yeah.
Me too. No.
Stay tuned.
Absolutely. Bill, thank you for coming on here. Really,
my pleasure, man.
You're a phenomenal talent, and you should.
Oh well, thanks, man. It's good talking to you.
Yeah, no, I've only worked on that one show with you, but I love the humor. I love the humor, and I can't wait to see this stuff that you're doing. So,
well, I'll send you a title card from Dumb Bunny.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, man.
Bill, thanks again.
Okay, man.
This was fun.
Do you have any questions or comments about the podcast? Please email Brian at CARTOONERIFIC.com. Your email may be featured in one of our future shows.
It was a pleasure having Bill Kopp on today on the Cartoonerific podcast. We're looking forward to seeing Dumb Bunny and Jackass in the future, so stay tuned for that. Next week on the Cartoonerific podcast, our special guest will be John Over. He is an Emmy Award-winning producer and director. He worked on Animaniacs and Tiny Toons, helped develop Disney and ABC's One Saturday Morning, and he was producer-director of Clifford the Big Red Dog and Jakers, The Adventures of Piggly-Winks. He'll be on next Thursday on the Cartoonerific podcast, so please come back for that. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe, and more than that, please tell a friend. Tell everybody about the Cartoonerific podcast, please. It helps us out. So anyway, we have the company store open, and we also have the Animation Art Gallery. If you want to help support us, you can do so by purchasing something from one of those stores. Anyway, just want to wish you and yours a very happy Thanksgiving Day. Hope you have a wonderful one. And we'll see you all next week on the Cartoonerific podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
This has been a Cartoonerific Studios presentation.
The Cartoonerific podcast is copyright 2024 by Cartoonerific Studios Incorporated. All rights reserved.